Boom, boom, boom. Here's a dueo. Dueo.
A long time since we got a dueo.
Boom, boom, boom. Here's a dueo. Dueo. Boom, boom, boom. Is that dueo? Welcome back to the, welcome to the bro. Try that again.
Sure.
Welcome to the Ohio Dark Vault. I'm the keeper of the vault, Elmer.
Okay.
What an intimidating voice for someone with such a stupid fucking name. You've reached the Ohio Dark Vault. That cat down here.
Yeah, it keeps
fucking
brushing up against me.
Bitch. What happens in the Ohio Dark Vault? We've been trying to get very many stories of the weird, the wacky, the just downright creepy.
Yeah.
Your personal stories. Sometimes we get tales of government cover-ups, different types of, and this kind of goes along those lines right there. Because what we have for this episode is we're going to be talking about the story of Dwight, our former president, Dwight D. Eisenhower. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
He was president after Harry S. Truman. He took over right after the end of World War II. An exceptionally tumultuous time in the world. There was some serious fucking global heat going on right then, buddy. But Dwight, or as we like to call him here at the Ohio Podcast, Ike, saw his way through it for the American people.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is not okay with me summoning people from the dead, me doing Ouija board stuff, anything like that. So what we have tonight is the lovely Laura Eisenhower, the great granddaughter. I think I got that right. Great, it might be great. Now look real quick. I didn't want to mess that up. She's the great granddaughter of Dwight Eisenhower. She got the same last name and everything.
Nice, yeah.
And the cool thing about her is not only is she well versed in what we're talking about this evening, the fact that Dwight Eisenhower met with the fucking aliens, okay? She is very much in tune with the MK Ultra stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She's a fighter for these people that have been kind of covered up by the government. She's very close with Tony Rodriguez, one of the 20 in Backspace program. Mm-hmm. She does a lot of stuff with him. She's got her own stuff going on. She's very much working for these children that are allegedly part of this Democratic child pedophilia ring, kind of being their voice. She's got a lot of stuff going on, man. But she's a very talented person. We are ecstatic to have her on the show.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
I'm going to do this huge build-up for her. We're not supposed to interview her for 40 minutes, and then she probably won't show up. So then we'll have to go back and edit it and be like, sorry, she didn't show up. I'm sure she will. She seemed like she's definitely on board. We're really looking forward to it.
Great.
I've been trying to get a hold of her for about a year now. I'm glad it finally worked on the day that we were going to cover Eisenhower's meeting with the aliens.
Like it's fate.
It's fucking fate. She's going to be huge on this show. Huge. I love it so much.
Huge.
I've never spoke to someone of such royalty in my life, aside from my father.
I talked to Dave Chappelle once. Does that count?
By accident. Oh, yeah. He held the door for you, the Cheesecake Factory.
Shut it in my face, yeah.
Shut it in my face.
And then he opened it up and realized there was somebody behind him.
Oh, sorry, motherfucker. No, but she's got so much stuff going on in her brain. She's an excellent interview. She's going to be great on this show, so really looking forward to that. And some of you are probably saying, well, back the fucking truck up. Eisenhower met the aliens. Yeah, it's called the Greada Treaty. I believe it's what it's called. I may have pronounced it incorrectly because I am the retarded one of the two of us. I'm not Rob, okay? I'm Delicious Nicolicious. Not a strong reader. Strong man. Pick up a dumpster. Throw it over your fence into your yard. You want me? I had to do that one time. Still got warrants out for my arrest for that one, but neither here nor there.
He's the brawn. I kind of have the brain.
Yeah, the brain and the beauty on that side of the table.
Oh, stop it!
I've got the eating skills. Actually, Rob can out-eat me.
Yeah.
There's no way in this fucking entire universe he should be skinnier than me, but he's
No.
very much skinnier. I don't know how he does it because
talent.
The man will plate 12 Golden Corrals right now. He'll walk in there and they will call the FBI when he walks in to get him out of there because he is such trouble in a buffet.
My metabolism hasn't completely shut down yet, so I'm taking advantage of that.
Do you like Golden Corral?
I don't mind it.
I don't mind it either.
Nah, I mean, yeah.
I feel like dog shit when I leave there.
Yeah. They have really, really fucking good banana pudding. I don't know how they make it, but
all the stuff,
dude, it's so fucking good.
It is good.
If I go there, I get a full plate of that just by itself.
Oh, God.
Dude, no joke.
That'd make my guts so mushy.
And their macaroni and cheese, it's like just like Stouffer's macaroni and cheese, but it's so fucking good.
It's good. Where'd we go in Tennessee? We got done. When I took the family to Pigeon Forge, it got really late one night, and my wife's like, we need dinner. And everywhere was still packed, dude.
Right.
Everywhere was an hour, 2 hour wait. And I'm like, man, fuck this. Let's just get McDonald's. So we roll up to the McDonald's, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm really going to be on vacation.
Be that person.
And I'm glad I'm telling this story with my wife right here. So we decided it was time to get food. So we went to Shoney's.
Oh, nice.
And I haven't been to Shoney's in a long time.
Yeah.
My wife, I don't think she's ever been to Shoney's. Have you ever been to Shoney's?
That used to be our, do what? Well, that was the place like that my family would go to all the time when we lived in Florida. It's like every Friday we would go there.
See, I vaguely remember it from when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I did not remember it having a buffet inside of it. And we went in there and I got the buffet. It was not very good. I think I might have passed away briefly in my seat, but I came back. And I did poop my pants afterwards, but it was not good. It tasted like they brought my wife's drink and it tasted like fucking bong water. It was disgusting. It was pretty. Yeah, my wife said it tastes like the shitty bong water, which I've never had good bong. I've never drank bong water officially. That's an Arizona thing, I believe.
I think so.
They don't waste the. She flicked me off. She didn't flip me off. She flicked me off. I think Shoney's it was much like Frisch's.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's pretty much the equivalent of Frisch's. Frisch's has a buffet. You can go to some of them that have buffets, and it's kind of the same thing.
Frisch's is way better than Shoney's.
Yeah.
I love Frisch's.
You got that salad bar. It's pretty dope.
Yeah, it is. You got the French and the Thousand Island and the homemade ranch.
I just love that you're sitting here. They can't see you, but he's sitting here closing his eyes as he's saying this. Like, it's just all about it.
Tartar sauce. You have to put tartar sauce on the burgers there, and it's so good. And the onion rings.
Oh, yeah, the onion rings are good.
You dip the onion rings in the tartar sauce.
I love food.
You want to go there after this?
Sure.
Let's fucking squash this show. We'll sneak out the side door and we'll go to Frisch's.
Just stop right now. Forget
we
it.
won't tell anybody that we went to Frisch's. But you got to call it Frisch's, not Frisch's. Frisch's. All right, let's hop on into the Dark Vault real quick here before we have to dial up Ms. Laura Eisenhower, because that's going to be really exciting. I was going to outline Dwight's rise to presidency.
Okay.
But then she comes through in the clutch. She says, yeah, I'll do the interview. So I think this is probably the part of the story that I'll need to cut out, because this is kind of a long one here. So, Ike's family immigrated from Germany, and he was a very athletic lad in high school, and he wanted to. The thing was between he and his brother, they both wanted to go to college, but they both couldn't financially do it. So what they agreed is one would go to college while the other worked, and then they would switch years. They would rotate years.
Understanding.
Get through it, man. That's some fucking family sacrifice right there.
Yeah.
But then his brother went to school first, and at the start of the second year, his brother's like, dude, is it cool if I go again? And Dwight's like, yeah, man, you can take the second year also. But eventually, Dwight got into, I think, West Point?
West Point?
Maybe? I could be wrong about that.
It says at the beginning it was West Point.
Okay, yeah, it was West Point. So he was accepted there in 1911. Eventually leads him down the path of World War One, and then finally into World War II, where he's one of the greatest Army generals.
It probably only cost him like $5,000 to go to school back then for his entire tuition.
Yeah, he became one of the greatest military commanders of the. He essentially won World War II. Is the way I interpret it. America fucking won World War II, but it was because of the decisions and the strings that Dwight Eisenhower was pulling.
We're still undefeated, motherfuckers.
They tried to get him, because he was royalty at this point. After the war, he was a fucking rock star. They tried to get him to run in the presidential election right after World War II.
Okay.
And he didn't want to do it. There were many politicians that approached him about running for president. This was in the 1948 election.
Okay.
And he said, Truman came to him and said, if you want to run for office, we will win this for you. We will get you in office. And Eisenhower, Ike, he said, I'm not running for office. I'm a professional fucking soldier, okay? That's what I am. I don't cater to these political parties. I'm a professional soldier. So
Such a badass.
He did not run for office at that point. Then in 1952, the urges started to come. He started creeping up. He kind of said, you know what? Maybe I should run for president so I can make the ultimate difference, hold the ultimate position in this country, and be the commander and fucking chief. And he did. He ran for president. It had no opposition. It was a fucking landslide. He had a lot of...
Probably ran against Ross Perot.
It was Bob Dole, I believe who it was.
John McCain.
Donald Trump. He's a time traveler. Trump ran that one and lost. Just like he's going to do in a couple weeks. Hold on. Back the fucking truck up. No, I think he'll win. Like I don't want him to win. I don't want Biden to win. I don't fucking care who wins, but I think he's going to win.
Yeah.
I think that for better or for worse, it could be really, really bad. But I think like just like if the Bengals played the fucking Steelers right now. I hate the Steelers. I'm a huge Bengals fan.
Mm-hmm.
But just because I like the Bengals, I'm not going to say the Bengals are going to kick their fucking ass. I know in my heart that the Steelers are going to fucking mop the floor with Joe Burrow's dead carcass. And that's what I'm going to get. And I'm not saying that's how the election's going to go, but I just get the vibe like, there's going to be another. So you remember in the last election, right before the election, they're like, oh, Hillary's emails, like a day before the election. Everyone's like, oh my God. And I think that swayed it. I think we're going to have a big November surprise between now and the next 2 weeks.
Think so?
Yeah.
Because this whole laptop thing?
Yeah, a laptop thing for sure. They're like, we found a picture of his dick. It's a huge dick. Not a very good dick. But I tell you what, it's a dirty dick. Oh, he's a dirty dick, and we're going to fix his dirty dick. So here's some of Ike's top accomplishments. He sponsored and signed the Civil Rights Bill of 1957.
Nice.
He sponsored and signed the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. Thank you for that one.
Don't know what that is, but it sounds important.
This gave birth to America's interstate highway system.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Eisenhower worked hard to get the bill passed, and it was his favorite piece of legislation. He balanced the budget not once, but 3 times. Despite much pressure to do otherwise, he also refused to cut taxes and raise defense spending. His fiscal policy contributed to the prosperity of the 1950s, very rockin' fucking 50s. He ended the Korean War. He alone had the prestige to persuade Americans to accept a negotiated peace and convince the Chinese that failure to reach an agreement would lead to dire consequences. Eisenhower considered this to be his greatest presidential accomplishment. But his number one accomplishment, which I do believe this is, not necessarily accomplishment, but it was his greatest accomplishment. He kept us at peace during a time of war, okay?
Mm-hmm.
This was right after World War II. The world is on the brink of apocalypse. We just nuked fucking Japan, wiped 2 cities off the fucking map.
Mm-hmm.
We got these nuclear bombs. But Eisenhower, he was confronted with the major Cold War crisis every year he was in office. Korea, Vietnam, Formosa, Hungary, Berlin, and the U-2. While more than once America seemed on the brink of war and those around him clamored to drop the bomb, Eisenhower always kept a level head. He dealt calmly and rationally with each situation, always finding a solution that avoided war without diminishing America's prestige. Very noble president. Noble man. I do respect all that very much. So he did become president, and you'll remember, I think he became president in 1952. Yep. He served 2 terms, but Eisenhower's accomplishment, this is right at the heels of the Roswell crash, okay? But the thing about the Roswell crash is Roswell wasn't brought to light until the 1970s. In the 1940s, whenever the Roswell crash occurred, it was still firmly believed that it was a goddamn weather balloon. That's what they told the general public, and that's what the general public believed, man, is that it was a weather balloon. Whether it was or wasn't, I wasn't there. I know they brought some wreckage here to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
It was a weather balloon that, fortunate enough, tons and tons of military was dispatched to pick up the wreckage of.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of the most...
What was his name? J.B. Brazel? Was that the ranch hands? Something Brazel.
There's some
long enough for his whole house to be completely searched and ransacked.
There's some wild stuff going on there, man. Yeah.
Conveniently, that's a lot of work for a weather balloon.
You know, this is very sad. I don't know a lot about Roswell. I've never watched a documentary about it.
I used to be all about Roswell.
I never have listened to a podcast about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about it. And that's a really sad thing coming from someone that's supposed to be like a conspiracy podcaster. That's something I definitely want to, but I think that's good for us whenever we go into a topic with a new, like John Benet Ramsey. I didn't know much about that at all. I feel like we contributed something different than everybody else has done.
Definitely.
That's one of my proudest episodes that we have. We have I think the West Market Murders, the Randy Stairs one, where we got the female to interview that had the gun practically put up to her head in the market where he was killing everybody, and then he just walked away. We got her on the show. She'd never done an interview before that, but she came on here and she said she listened to it afterwards. She said, I like you guys treat me with respect. You did a good job. You guys are fucking assholes. Besides, other than that, and I said, you got it right, girl. That's us. You got the right ones. But like I said, we're on the heels of the Roswell crash. Roswell wasn't brought to the limelight until the 1970s. So there was, at this point, some ramblings of possible extraterrestrials, UFOs, all kinds of stuff like that kind of going on, you know. That stuff is kind of just now coming to the forefront of American culture. On the night and early morning of February 20th, my younger brother's birthday, and February 21st, 1954, while on vacation in Palm Springs, California, President Dwight D. Eisenhower mysteriously went missing for several hours. Let me tell you 3 things you don't want to fucking lose. Your wallet, your car keys, and the fucking president,
and
okay?
Your fucking president.
Yeah. There are 3 things you don't want to lose. And that night, Ike just...
I mean, that's very, very bizarre in its own right. That doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen. And wait till you hear the stuff that corresponds with him going missing. It's not just, okay, he disappeared and we'll see him when he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
He had some engagements he had some obligations that he had to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
And he just didn't fucking show up to. He was gone. All right. Let me make that clear. I don't know what national security was like at that time, but I know how it is now.
It's definitely not the same, but
and I know how it was 20 years ago. You don't lose the president. The dude, I've heard stories they bagged the motherfucker shit up so other countries can't have his shit.
I would expect a hard ass like Dwight here.
He probably takes a really hard
He was
shit.
His own Secret Service.
Yeah. We'll have to ask her that too.
Yeah, right.
I think that how would you like to be the guy that has to bag Donald Trump shit after he's just got done eating 2 fucking Big Macs and a large fry and a Diet Coke?
I want to take a look at this because I want to see when the Secret Service was even established.
I want to say it was with No, he was with JFK. I don't know if it was the
Oh, dang. 1865.
Really?
Yeah.
I was way off.
It's the nation's oldest federal investigative law enforcement agency.
Oh,
founded in 1865 to combat counterfeiting of U.S. currency. Okay.
Yeah, I do. When I worked at the police department, anytime that we would get a counterfeit bill, I'd have to take it to the federal building and give it to the Secret Service.
Huh.
It was always really, really tight, you know.
Started by Pinkerton, Alan Pinkerton.
What year was that?
1865.
They did a really shitty job with that Abraham Lincoln mix-up and the JFK thing.
Yeah. You win some, you lose some.
Well, they really lost those ones. Well, okay, we didn't lose the president, but he's dead. We definitely fucked up. There were always whispers in Dwight Eisenhower's circle that Dwight or Ike, that he had a very strong belief and an understanding, not just like it might be, but he had a belief and an understanding that there were forces and life outside of our planet and our solar system.
Yeah.
He had
without a doubt.
Very open mind to that. He was kind of an older president as well, but he had a very open mind when it came to the belief of extraterrestrials and aliens and UFOs being in our solar system, possibly being close to our planet. That makes him really fucking cool in his own right there.
For sure.
This was a time when our nuclear weapons were rising to well, they weren't we'd already had them, motherfuckers. Like, we were blowing people up.
And if there's one thing that we've talked about tons and tons of times, it's that anytime that there is, what a lot of people think is anytime that there's any type of extraterrestrial presence among us, it's always during times of nuclear events.
Sure, that's like Roswell,
right after World War II, and we dropped
Betty
nukes.
and Barney Hill. All of that stuff is right around the time that maybe not necessarily when we dropped the bomb, but you better believe we were practicing dropping bombs, and we were using nuclear power, and we were creating nuclear bombs.
Sure. And a lot of people theorize that that's one of the reasons they come here is because they kind of know about it and know how bad that it is.
Right.
That they kind of come in to warn us like, hey, you guys got to stop fucking around with that stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's no bueno.
And that's when the aliens really took an interest in us, is when they realized, hey, they got nuclear power.
I mean, let's face it, if there are aliens, they've been here way longer than we have. They didn't just stumble upon us one day.
Shit, man. Who knows? I don't fucking know.
I don't think they did.
I can't even pronounce most of the words in this research.
I think they're still here.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Keeping an eye on us.
There's slowly. Today, they found water on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of water. I didn't read about it at all, but I flipped past Fox News and there was some scientist on there, and I heard her say, we might not have to pack water on our fucking spaceships anymore.
Wow.
Imagine how good that water is on the moon. Just drink some moon water. That's way better than
moon mist.
Dasani. Yes.
I want to get some of that moon mist.
Yeah, let me get that moon water. Yeah, girl. They're I'm sorry. On this date in question, the February 20th and 21st, late the 20th, early on the 21st, Dwight had a late lunch scheduled with the press, although he was, quote, on vacation.
Okay.
He still had shit to do. He had some type of engagement or a luncheon with the press where he was going to meet with them, have lunch with them. They were going to be able to talk to him about policy, about what his plans were, about the State of the Union, all the different things that you want to talk to the United States president about.
Yeah.
What you fucking live for as a journalist, sit down with Ike, the greatest fucking military man in the history of the American military. You just sit down with him, have lunch with him, pick his brain a little bit. And Dwight didn't fucking show up to the luncheons.
I find it comical enough, and something that I've never ever thought of, the fact that a president gets vacation time.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that weird to think about?
Well,
granted, in all honesty, in my opinion, the president doesn't really do that much anyways.
You're a fucking idiot. Oh my!
Let's be honest.
Our president right now might not do that much. You are.
They're just the face of the operation. That's it. They don't control nothing.
I would have to. I don't know what our current president, his conscience is like. Okay, but any other person in the history of the world, if they had to wake up every morning right now,
that's a shitty job. First
for the
off,
past year, and just be like, "Hello, Mr. President. We have 750,000 positive COVID tests today." And as a president, you're just supposed to be like, what the fuck do I do now? You don't have an answer. There's no playbook for this shit. Although...
Fake news.
Yeah, exactly. I saw Barack Obama campaigning last week. He said, "We wrote the playbook on how to handle infectious diseases. All Donald Trump has to do is open it up." Which may be the case. I don't know. I don't know enough about politics and policy to say, well, he's fucking lying, or
yeah.
He's fucking. All I know is there's a man that has to wake up every day right now, and he has to. The virus is real. Like
sure.
It's killing people and getting people sick. The story that it's just fake, that I'm still hearing from some people. The shit isn't fake.
Yeah, it's definitely not fake.
Now I have people close to me laying in ICUs that are clinging to life. People close to me that I love, that I've known my entire life. And without going any further, it's not my mom, it's not my dad. I have people close to me in the hospital from this shit right now. So I know that it's real, but I'm just saying, you said it's not a hard job, but this dude has to wake up every day.
No, it's a shitty job. I just think that...
No, a hard job is baling hay.
The president's more so just the face of the operation. He doesn't really do much. It's everybody else around him that does everything. He just signs off on shit, whether or not he wants to or not.
I think it's different. I think it's different by president to president, for sure.
That's definitely a possibility.
Like I said before, someone has to bag their poop up.
Not one person should ever be allowed to be president. Like that's not a job for one person. That's just a shitty job in general. You couldn't pay me enough.
Like a mom, you have to take care of the entire house. I wouldn't want to fucking do that.
Hell no. Nope.
And I said before, he was on vacation. Well, that's what makes this story. We read in the fact that maybe he wasn't necessarily on this trip for vacation, that it was something else. Like I said, Dwight just disappeared for several hours, standing everyone up at this luncheon. And these people were clamoring, dying to meet with him and dying to eat with him.
Maybe the food sucked.
He wasn't seen until the next morning at church. The press were very upset.
Yeah.
And seemingly baffled at the disappearance, and they had a lot of questions for the White House. They pressed the White House for answers about where Dwight was, and more notably, pressed the White House press secretary. They were finally provided with an answer at that point. The press secretary called an emergency press meeting late that night.
Speaking of shitty jobs, can you imagine being press secretary?
Yeah, I had to fucking cover up shit tracks for all these. Yeah. Whew. He calls an emergency press meeting in the middle of the night, dude. Late as fuck, to tell these people the whereabouts of where the president was. The House press secretary told them that Ike had chipped a tooth from eating fried chicken, and he had to go see a dentist.
Okay. What's
funny is the day after the disappearance, they had this another press event where they had a bunch of people rubbing elbows, and they had a dentist show up.
No.
They wouldn't talk to anybody, and he just kind of walked around and smiled like, "This is the dentist that fixed the tooth of President Dwight D. Eisenhower." And he's just at this fucking dinner like
what am I doing here?
Just smiling, doesn't even know how to fucking brush his teeth, let alone pull a tooth. And listen, "This is the guy. This is the dentist." So this guy just stands around and smiles like he's fucking stupid, and he wouldn't really talk to anyone. While the incidents of a local dentist being called upon to treat a president is unusual enough,
very much so, yeah,
that it should constitute a rather memorable event for those involved, the dentist's widow, so apparently this guy they brought really was a dentist, in June of 1979, it was an interview she did, was curiously unable to recall any specifics relating to her husband's alleged involvement in the affair, not even the time of day it had occurred. You bet your sweet titties if your husband woke up in the middle of the night and said, "Sweetheart, I gotta go fix the president's chipped tooth." You'd say, "I'm gonna remember this fucking moment forever."
Sure. Yeah.
One time, my wife got up, slipped in fucking dog vomit, and fell and hit her head on my wall in my bedroom when I was like 21 years old. Not a super monumental moment, but I still remember that someone like, "You remember that night your wife slipped in dog vomit and fell and hit her head?" I'd say, "Fuck yeah, I remember." She was pissed off. I still got that dog though. Good dog. Hell of a dog. But I would remember that shit. I still remember that shit. They say, "You remember the night your dog ate like 20 pounds of green macaroni and cheese and you got to take him to the emergency vet?" I say, "Yeah, I remember that shit. I'm still paying the fucking credit card for that shit."
Yeah, there's some things like that you, no matter how tired you are, you're going to remember.
If your husband gets up and says, "I just got a call from the White House. I have to go fix Dwight Eisenhower's chipped tooth."
You're not going to forget that.
It wasn't his normal dentist. It was just some out-of-town, some small-town dentist. You fucking remember that shit, dude.
Definitely.
Yet her memory appeared flawless when asked to relate details of her and her husband's attendance by presidential invitation at a steak fry the following evening, where her husband was introduced as the dentist who had treated the president. A state rep from New Hampshire, I believe his name was Henry McElroy Jr., has since came forward and advised that he's seen the top secret documents that put Ike at Edwards Air Force Base during the night in question. So he left Palm Springs, California, and arrived at Edwards Air Force Base in California that night. It's believed that Eisenhower spent the evening at Edwards Air Force Base in the preliminary talks of some type of treaty with extraterrestrials, because like I said, these dudes start asking questions, getting real pissed off when you start messing with the nuclear shit.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole entire premise of this meeting was for Dwight Eisenhower, who had proved once before that he was doing a pretty good job of getting this country through a time of war exceptionally peacefully, okay? He's doing a really good job of that he is presented with the opportunity to make a treaty with the aliens. And it's already been said, Dwight Eisenhower kind of got an open mind to extraterrestrial beings and the thought of UFOs and people coming here from other space systems. Dwight Eisenhower said, "You know what? Let's fucking do it. Let's meet with these guys. Let's see if we can work a fucking deal out."
I mean, if there's anybody to work a deal out with, it's definitely going to be the aliens.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
There was quite the media frenzy when Ike didn't show up to that press dinner that he missed. That press meeting we spoke of was actually, well, I stated it before, when he called the late evening emergency press conference. So when he called, the press secretary called this emergency late night press conference, it was for him to solemnly swear that there was nothing weird going on. So he calls this event. He says, I have you all here just because I swear to you, our president isn't doing any hanky-panky business. He's getting a chip tooth fixed.
Sure.
President had been enjoying fried chicken earlier that evening and had knocked a cap off of a tooth and had been taken to a local dentist for treatment. Many people closely associated have advised that this wasn't a planned vacation. Like Rob said, he said, well, I don't think the fucking president should get vacation. He doesn't have a hard job.
I didn't say it that way. I mean, they definitely should.
No.
It's just funny thinking that the president is like, you get vacation time as a president.
Yeah.
It's just strange. Like, yeah, you're supposed to be running a country, but just take a week off.
Go to Mar-a-Lago for a couple of weeks. Go to your golf course,
Go play golf. Yeah, exactly.
Fat shit. Many people closely associated have advised that this was not to Palm Springs, California. This was not a planned vacation. This was something thrown together rather quickly with no explanation. In addition, it's a matter of record that Ike had returned from a quail shooting vacation in Georgia less than a week before leaving for Palm Springs, California.
Okay.
If I'm the president of the United States of America and I'm Dwight Eisenhower, I'm probably quail hunting on my vacation.
That sounds very likely. Yeah.
Just to be like, I'm going to go to Palm Springs, California. There's nothing there for a president to do. Of all the places that he could have went, nothing there for him to do. I wholeheartedly, if this story would have been like, he was on vacation in a cabin, quail hunting, and he chipped a tooth eating fried chicken, I'm saying, close and shut. You guys are fucking retarded. This is the easiest story ever. But the fact that our president had just got back from vacation, quail hunting in Georgia, to go on another vacation, the man was a fucking government man his entire life, dude. This guy was not abusing the American people's dollar. He was not saying, I'm going to go quail hunting, and when I get back, I'm going to go hang out with these fucking hippies in California. That's exactly, well, they didn't have hippies in the 50s, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
I don't buy that he immediately went on another vacation right after he got back.
It is very strange.
It's very strange. That's why we're talking about this. He was going out there to talk to aliens, Rob. It all makes sense to me, man.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
And recently there have been other facts unearthed in the Eisenhower Library that adds many question marks to this story. The library maintains an extensive record it's an index of records relating to the president's health. There's no record of any dental work having been performed at all during February of 1954. A file on dentists contains nothing concerning any such incident either. Secondly, there's a large file containing copies of all sorts of acknowledgments which were sent by the White House to people who had something to do with the Palm Springs trip. So there's all kinds of people that were in charge of flowers, they were in charge of planes. There's all kinds of acknowledgments sent to them like, hey, is this set up? You know, people doing the catering and stuff like that. There's no paperwork for the dental visit at all. And there's nothing in there about his health records as far as a dental visit during that time.
Okay.
No official record. Time to flip over to Zoom and get the interview.
Heck yeah.
With our lady.
Sure.
Okay. Whew. We just got off the phone with Laura.
Yeah, which you'll hear this interview at the end of this episode, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so once we turn it over to the interview, set it to half speed. There's a lot of information in a short time frame.
We didn't cover the topic at all, hardly.
But there was so much stuff.
Gosh. Okay. So next in our story here, there was one gentleman who claims to. His name is Timothy Light, I believe. He claims to have been at the Air Force Base when the meeting happened. He wrote a letter that said, "My dear friends, I have just returned from Muroc or Edwards Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. This report is true, devastatingly true. I made the journey in company with Franklin Allen of the Hearst Papers and Edwin Norris of Brookings Institute. When we were allowed to enter the restricted section after about 6 hours in which we were checked on every possible item, event, incident, and aspect, I had the distinct feeling that the world had come to an end with a fantastic realism, for I have never seen so many human beings in a state of complete collapse and confusion, and they realized that their own world had indeed ended with such finality as the beggar description. So what this guy was trying to say is that these aliens, that he was there for the meeting between Eisenhower and the aliens.
Mm-hmm.
These aliens that come down, much like she talked about briefly, were trying to portray that they were in a dire state and needed our help, and that their specific alien race was dying off, and that Eisenhower could work out this treaty, and it was somehow going to save their race as well, and they were going to do us favors for saving their race.
Okay.
This gentleman, though, however, his name's Mr. Timothy, I think it's Timothy Light.
Mm-hmm.
His background, however, turned up the fact that he was an elderly mystic who believed that psychic out-of-body experiences were a logical extension of the reality of life and should be treated as such.
Okay.
So he was a fucking nutty fucker, for sure. And there were a lot of people that were connected to these meetings that were kind of at the end stages of their careers, did really important, prominent things during their military and governmental careers, but they were linked to these meetings. For instance, Dr. Edwin Norris, he was the first chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors to the President in 1944 to 1953. He was alleged to have been in these negotiations, in these meetings. He was present, and it was his job to provide his expertise on possible economic impact of first contact with extraterrestrials. Sorry, we're blowing through this real quick, guys, because we spent an hour with her, and we're only going to spend 20, and Rob hasn't been home in 3 days. He hasn't showered in 3 days.
I'm a mess.
There was also Cardinal James Francis McIntyre. He was the bishop and head of the Catholic Church in L.A. and would have been an important gauge for the possible reaction from religious leaders. He was involved with this meeting as well, so it was his job to kind of see, what the fuck is the religious community going to do once they realize that there's a first contact with aliens.
Yeah, could you imagine?
Yeah, and but like I said, all of these linked individuals were at later stages, were honorable, noble people at the end of their careers. Mm-hmm. So if they had to carry this information to their grave, it wouldn't take that long for them to get to their grave. Is kind of the reason why they picked these people to kind of be like his counsel that he consulted with as far as these meetings with the aliens. Another gentleman by the name of William Cooper, who served on the Naval Intelligence Briefing Team for the commander of the Pacific Fleet between 1970 and 1973, had access to classified documents that he had to review in order to fulfill his briefing duties. He describes the background and nature of the first contact. In 1953, astronomers discovered large objects in space which were moving towards Earth. It was first believed that they were asteroids. Later evidence proved that the objects could only be spaceships.
Huh.
Project Sigma intercepted alien radio communications.
Project Schmegma.
Schmegma. When the objects reached the Earth, they took up a very high orbit around the equator. There were several huge ships, and their actual intent was unknown. Project Sigma and a new project, Plato, through radio communication using the computer binary language, was able to arrange a landing that resulted in face-to-face contact with alien beings from around the planet. Project Plato was tasked with establishing diplomatic relations with this race of space aliens. In the meantime, a race of human-looking aliens contacted the U.S. government. This alien group warned us against the aliens that were orbiting the equator and offered to help us with our spiritual development.
It was like the Crips and Bloods aliens.
They were fucking beefing, dude. They demanded that we dismantle and destroy our nuclear weapons as the major condition.
Okay, makes sense.
They refused to exchange technology, citing that we were spiritually unable to handle the technology which we then possessed. Which we really fucked up the nuclear stuff.
Yeah.
They believe that we could use any new technology to destroy each other.
That we would use, yeah. Which makes sense.
This race stated that we were on a path of self-destruction and must stop killing one another. We need to stop polluting the earth, stop raping the earth's natural resources, and learn to live in harmony. According to William Suggs, a retired sergeant from the U.S. Marine Corps, his father, General L. Suggs, who died in 1987, he was born in 1909, was a former commander with the U.S. Navy who attended the meeting at Edwards Air Force Base with Eisenhower. Sergeant Suggs recounted his father's experiences from the meeting in 1991 interview and when he sat with a prominent UFO researcher. Charlie's father, Navy Commander Charles Suggs, accompanied President Ike along with others on the February 20th meeting. They met and spoke with two white-haired Nordics that had pale blue eyes and colorless lips. The spokesman stood a number of feet away from Ike and would not let him approach any closer. A second Nordic stood on the extended ramp of a biconvex saucer that stood on tripod landing gear on the landing strip. According to Charlie, there were B-58 Hustlers on the field, even though the first one did not fly officially until 1956. These visitors said they came from another solar system. According to the testimonies examined so far, the February 20th meeting was not successful, and the extraterrestrials were spurned due to their refusal to enter into technology exchanges. And I think that the biggest thing is we weren't going to disarm our nuclear. We were not fucking giving up our nukes, just like we're not going to give up our nukes right now. Later in 1954, the race of large-nosed gray aliens, which had been orbiting the Earth, landed at Holloman Air Force Base. In February of 1955, approximately 300 people saw Air Force One land. This is a second meeting. This is either a second or third meeting that occurred between Dwight Eisenhower and the extraterrestrials. 300 people saw Air Force One land at Holloman Air Force Base and taxi back out to the end of the runway. Shortly after the plane landed, the pilot instructed the tower to turn off all radar while the president's plane was on the tarmac. Shortly after Air Force One landed and the radar was turned off, 3 round objects were seen in the sky. One landed about 200 feet in front of Air Force One, another hovered over the area as though keeping watch, and a third one disappeared from visibility.
Wild.
A man, presumed to be Eisenhower, descended the steps of Air Force One. He was seen shaking hands with a being at the door of the saucer, then entering the unusual saucer-shaped aircraft. Ike was in the saucer for about 45 minutes. When he left, he was not wearing a hat and was clearly visible to many observers. All witnesses recognized him as President Eisenhower. A basic agreement was reached. The race identified themselves as originating from a planet around a red star and the constellation of Orion, which was called Betelgeuse. They stated that their planet was dying and that some unknown future time they would no longer be able to survive there.
Beetlejuice.
It was definitely Beetlejuice.
That's where they got the name from. The Beetlejuice name. That's not even a joke.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, look at it.
I see it.
Beetlejuice. Yeah.
The meeting at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico has reportedly been the site of subsequent extraterrestrial meetings, and it's said that these meetings still happen every few years. In 1972 to 73, for example, the producers Robert Emenegger and Alan Sandler.
Wait, what was that one?
Emenegger.
Okay.
Emenegger. Emenegger.
Okay.
And Alan Sandler, no relation to the dickhead Adam Sandler, had allegedly been offered and witnessed actual Air Force film footage of a meeting involving gray extraterrestrials that occurred at Holloman Air Force Base in 1971. The treaty stated that the aliens would not interfere in our affairs and we would not interfere in theirs. We would keep their presence on Earth a secret. They would furnish us with advanced technology and would help us in our technological development. They would not make any treaty with any other Earth nation. They would abduct humans on a limited periodic basis for the purpose of medical examination and monitoring of our development, with the stipulation that the humans would not be harmed. They would be returned to their point of abduction, would have no memory of the event, and that the alien nation would furnish Majesty 12, MJ-12, with a list of all human contacts and abductees on a regularly scheduled basis. According to Cooper, the guy in this interview, the gray ETs signing the treaty were not trustworthy ETs. So,
oops.
This plan or treaty that they tried to work out where they would report the names of the abductees, the contacts, give them to the Majesty 12, that stuff kind of like fucking went to the wayside, and none of that stuff worked out. So the gentleman that invented the Learjet, I think it might have been Gary Lear.
Okay.
Argued that the aliens would and did quickly break the treaty. So there was trying to go through this and just put it in a nutshell. there's an understanding that all of these people involved are not supposed to talk about any of this shit.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully within the next few years here, there will be full disclosure like we've always wanted, Rob. And
for sure,
the following passage is from an alleged official document leaked to UFO researchers that describe the official secrecy policy adopted in April of 1954, 2 months after Eisenhower had first contact with ETs. And the policy goes, any encounter with entities known to be of extraterrestrial origin is to be considered to be a matter of national security and therefore top secret. See below images. There's no images, but under no circumstances is the general public or the public press to learn of the existence of these entities. The official government policy is that such creatures do not exist and that no agency of the federal government is now engaged in any study of extraterrestrials or their artifacts. Any deviation from this stated policy is absolutely forbidden. Penalties for disclosing classified information concerning ETs are quite severe. In December of 1953, Joint Chief of Staff issued Army, Navy, Air Force Publication 146 that made the unauthorized release of information concerning UFOs a crime under Espionage Act, punishable by up to 10 fucking years in prison and a $10,000 fine. The strategies for dealing with these former servicemen, corporate employees, or witnesses who brave or foolishly go out and try and inform the general public of exactly what the government is doing with extraterrestrials have been intimidated, silenced, eliminated, or they've been discredited as individuals altogether. These policies involve such strategies as removing all public records of former military servicemen or corporate employees. These are just people that have spoke out. Forcing individuals to make retractions.
Like Bob Lazar.
Yeah. Deliberately distorting statements of individuals or discrediting individuals. Bob Lazar, for example, claimed to be a former physicist employed with the reverse engineering ET crafts. He described the disappearance of all his university and public records, indicating how military intelligence agencies actively discredit whistleblowers. In 1964, almost 10 years after the initial first contact, 3 UFOs flew into the airspace at Holloman Air Force Base. They were tracked on radar and actually captured on film. One seemed to wobble and eventually land at the Air Force Base. 3 humanoids with blue-gray complexions dressed in tight-fitting flight suits were met by the Air Force Base commander and 4 other officers. The aliens stayed for several days and their aircraft was purportedly repaired. What was discussed in the meetings is still a mystery. It is also still a mystery as to why so many people could have been involved in the meetings, and to date, so few people have broken their silence. How did I do turning 10 pages into 10 minutes?
I think you got the gist of everything.
So,
all the good stuff, the meat and potatoes.
If you guys want to hold on for a second, we have the interview coming up with Laura Eisenhower.
It's worth it.
She's the great-granddaughter of Dwight Eisenhower. And the thing about Laura, she believes she is on a fucking cosmic mission. It's not my job to tell her whether she's right or wrong. Just like I've said before. She 1,000,000% believes that she's here for a higher purpose.
She definitely knows a lot more than we do, so we can't say that she's wrong.
I hope she is wrong about some stuff, because goddamn, it's fucked up shit.
Some terrifying stuff.
Yeah. So she's connected to some higher astral projection for sure. She's definitely got the you got a brain for it. We are fucking stupid. She is smart. We had to plow through this one, so you got a main episode and then you're getting a 2-hour Dark Vault episode all in 1 week.
Yeah. Definitely stay tuned for this, because this is
sexy.
Yeah, if you want your head to explode, get ready.
And then she talks about Trump, QAnon, deep state, child pedophilia rings, vaccinations,
interdimensional beings,
COVID-19,
Nordics, child trafficking. Yeah, it's everything.
Man, she's like, I fucking love talking to you guys.
So much stuff. It's a lot of good stuff.
We initially pegged her for 20 minutes. We got an hour out of her, so we're very grateful for that, honestly. Yes. I wish you much rest to all of your souls this week, that you can relax. Let's charge the jets for the holiday season coming up.
Wear your masks.
Wear your fucking masks if you want to wear your mask, whatever. Don't wear it.
Or don't.
Let us die.
Sure.
Let us all die, whatever.
Just love each other.
The holiday season coming up, remember, you are loved. We love you. Let's get through it together. The holiday season sucks, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to get through it together. And I'm still thinking about this Ohio Loves project where we just go to some trashy diner and give some waitress with 6 kids like $1,000. Ohio Loves. I don't know how to do it, though. GoFundMe or...
I don't know. We'll figure
the
something
most
out.
Trustworthy...
Excuse me.
Rob has to go to bed.
I do.
I'm going to be up editing for the next 12 hours. Enjoy the interview. All right, so we're here with our official guest for the show, Laura Eisenhower. We've already asked her how she was doing. We know she's doing good. She asked us how we're doing. We said we're ecstatic to be talking to her. Laura, thank you so much for being on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I wrote you. I know you are so busy because every day I see you have like 15 new interviews with other people. So I finally was able to get a hold of you, and we hammered this out in just a couple hours. So I really want to say thank you for joining us on such short notice. That's very kind of you. I know how busy you are.
Oh no, it's great. Good to be here.
Yeah. Now, in my research, Dwight Eisenhower is your great grandfather. Is that correct?
Great.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry. I said that earlier. I said great.
Yeah,
and
one
then
great.
I looked, I said, no, it's great. Yeah. I screwed that up. So it's your great grandfather. Is it on your mom or your dad's side?
It's actually on my mom's side. She legally changed our name after her and my father split.
Okay.
So yeah, my mom's side.
Okay.
Her name's Susan Eisenhower. She just came out with a new book called How Ike Led, if anybody's curious.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. I would love for you to, anything that you're working on or your family's working on, we'd love to plug that in this episode. Let everyone know what's going on so they can go check it out. Because I know everyone's going to be super fascinated with you. And like we talked about before, so this story is something that's followed your family name for many years, but you don't just specialize in this story. You actually dive down a lot of different rabbit holes. Is that right, Laura?
Yes, I actually live inside the rabbit hole. I've got real estate, and I pretty much
Location.
where I reside. What?
I said location.
It's perfect. So
yeah.
What
I go into a lot of other stuff.
What are your more favorite things to talk about?
Ooh, the treasure of our junk DNA. What is this mysterious junk DNA? Why were we taught that it was junk? I like to question everything I ever learned or didn't pay attention to or failed in.
Sure.
Because I'm like, I know something else is going on here. And I just ended up in the libraries and I did my own research. But it was definitely nothing that was offered in the school curriculum. And so I just learned a lot. I studied the I Ching to the point where I memorized the whole book, and there's like 64 hexagrams. It's a really big book. Went into like energy medicine and alternative approaches, which to me are more truthful and shouldn't even be called alternative.
Yeah.
And then galactic astrology. And I just kept getting these downloads and realizations that our junk DNA is so much more than we can possibly imagine. And if we're going to move into higher earth energies or the so-called ascension, I know it has to do with lifting the fences and seals from our DNA so that we can begin to experience these higher levels of our being. And junk DNA is actually made up of harmonic universes, higher harmonic universes. And when we start to connect into the galactic and even other ET races, it's a part of our full 12-strand and beyond capacity. And these things got shut down and our memories got wiped. And so we don't have a whole lot of recall. And that's the amnesia that we've been all, struggling with. And this term junk DNA just doesn't create the curiosity that's needed. And really to unscramble the fire codes that have made it junk, we need to, come into balance and unify polarity and understand the different attacks and targetings that have been cast upon us for thousands and thousands of years through the use of dark technology. So exposing the cabal and the deep state and the crimes against humanity kind of leads into, well, what does it mean when we're not being assaulted? What does it mean when we're able to remove ourselves from all that? Oh, this whole time they were after our DNA. They wanted us to stay dumbed down. And so it all kind of ties into the stuff that I talk about in terms of the exopolitical. And so there are some presentations where I connect all those dots. If I've given like 3 or 4 hours, I'm able to do that much more effectively.
Sure.
But yeah, and what we're facing right here and right now, as we're about to reclaim this lost treasure, they want to take us into the next level of keeping us from pursuing that discovery.
And I've been watching some of your interviews, and that's a completely you're right. That would be a 10-hour episode in itself if that's what we were talking about. And some of the points that you bring up, I'm just like, my God, it's so like I can't even, like, my heart is racing right now, Laura. It's all you have. All your stuff is so intriguing to hear about, but like you said, you need like 3 to 5 hours to connect all of it. Unfortunately, we don't have that.
Well,
tonight.
Before we close, I do have an event coming up, and it's 3 hours long. And so, anybody curious about all these different dots I've connected, I'll definitely share before we close.
Oh yeah, sure. For sure, I'll be there. I would love to. I'm all for it.
Oh, and you'll get constant replay. So if you can't actually make the time and day, but you sign up, you can have it to replay for forever.
Nice.
Awesome. It's going to be perfect. All right. Well, now back to one of the topics that you've talked to a million times. Like you said, is this story of your great grandfather connecting with the aliens? Was this something that was kind of passed down through the family, or was this something that you read about the first time you heard about it?
Wait, I didn't quite catch all that.
Well, like the topic we're discussing tonight, the story of your great grandfather and his meeting with the aliens, was the first time you heard of your great grandfather's meeting with the aliens. Was it through like a story passed down through the family, or was it something that you kind of discovered on the internet or maybe in a library by yourself?
It's a great question. Well, what was crazy is, no, I didn't get it from family.
Okay.
I have asked a lot of questions, and it's a very, very loving family. No, like, I'm really good at picking up on red flags of any kind of Illuminati stuff. And I can safely say that this is not one of those, families. Okay. Very humble and just very, very loving and full of love. What I kind of picked up on along the way is they weren't able to get the full information. I think Eisenhower was threatened, wasn't able to really share it with his close family members. Or the other reason they might not be sharing or talking about it with me is because they made some kind of agreement not to pass it down to our generation. Well, then they see me kind of out there, and I'm sharing as much as I possibly can with my big loud mouth, pulling it together, all the information I possibly can, just being like, this needs to be disclosed. So it all started for me around the age of 9. I was at the grocery store with my mom, and the newspaper, the Weekly World News, which is considered a joke newspaper, with crazy headlines like Bat Boys taking over New York City.
Sure.
It's just crazy headlines like The Onion. But I remember looking up at it, and it was a store that actually, and there was a picture of Eisenhower meeting with aliens. And my intuition, at that young age was, no, wait a second, that's not actually a curiosity. And I was being prepared a lot as a child, and he was like a spirit guide, and we are definitely in communication. I can't say that I have that with just any person that's, on the other side, but I did with him. And I was like, what is going on? All this stuff is like wanting to be downloaded into me. And there was a lot about being prepared for this particular window time we're in, because I was recruited to go off planet in 2006. So it's a huge, long story. Going off to a Mars colony. And I sensed that particular agenda had been infiltrated, and it had something to do with his administration. So he was very close by me because he knew that I was going to be on this, crazy journey, and nobody was really going to be able to validate it, and be very lonely and difficult. Fortunately, after social media, I'm like, oh my gosh, soul family. Like, I'm not, connecting dots, and like, I had like no friends and I was raising my kids by myself. And then all of a sudden, like, boom, it's just like, wow, the lights just switched on and here's everybody. Here's, like you guys now. So, but other stuff that was coming into me about sort of this larger picture stuff, going into like major dark night of the soul journeys. It was very archetypal for me. So I got really into mythology and archetypes and then the I Ching and, the elements, and then how DNA relates to the elements. The nucleic acids in our DNA are elemental: earth, air, fire, water. And the fifth element is the mitochondrial DNA, which connects with the mother, and how that energy is anchored back onto the planet, and why this is an ascension window period which the Mayans understood with the Venus transits. And it's the balance of the masculine and feminine. It's not just, but it's the content. It's all like too long of a story. But anyway, and it made it very, very difficult to be a good student because, like I told you, I'd either go off to the library or I was just in my own little world trying to process all this stuff and connect dots. So when the Mars recruitment happened in 2006, that's when I really, really got a grip on the Eisenhower treaties and the meetings, because I wasn't just getting it through the internet. I was living it. And I was seeing it firsthand and how those dots connected, because this particular group is connected with MJ12. And of course, MJ12 was a very big deal back then in the transfer of, World War II into Project Paperclip, Project Mockingbird, and every other project that infiltrated the American government and pretty much most power structures. So I, of course, investigated the that I was experiencing when that recruitment happened. And I knew that there was way more to the story because they weren't going to tell me anything. I was asking a lot of questions like, okay, why do they want me to go off planet? What does this have to do with? And why are they setting me up with this person? I had so many questions, but I was already like interested in disclosure and extraterrestrial stuff and everything already. But when I lived it firsthand, I was able to have a greater discernment when I did the research online through the internet. And then, so everybody's heard about the typical Greada Treaty. Eisenhower met with a grace. There is so much more to the story than you can imagine. I'm trying so hard to compile this information into books. Mostly I've just done interviews and I can't seem to find the extra time to be able to get these books out. But there's so much more to the story as far as when this first began with American governments. It went beyond just the United States, particularly during the Second World War. And I just got a much, much vaster history. And so when I do interviews about this and I talk about it, I bring stuff to the table that nobody's even ever heard of. And that's like a full lifetime of trying to connect these dots. That part of it being very, very first triggered at that young age. And then over the course of time, I'm one of those people that I live by, the curiosity. My curiosity has given me the ability to put together these, kind of presentations, because I won't ever stop searching truth if I feel like something's missing. Like that feeling like something's just not right. There's more. So I'm going to keep searching for more. And then I'm like, okay, it's a little too much. I gotta get some sleep and take a shower. I need to function.
If my brain moved like yours, I'd have to drink about 48 beers before I fell asleep every night to even fall asleep. I don't know how. Do you sleep or you
I have done that. Yeah, I have done that. I have filled up the recycle bins, and it's like, did you have a party? I'm like, I invited myself. I'm in the party. Fortunately, I don't have that habit in the way that I used to.
No,
but I take a lot of herbs that really help calm my nervous system, help me to sleep. Yeah, if I don't take something like that, very difficult to sleep. It's like, there's always stuff, coming in. I'm constantly processing, and
I understand. I don't understand.
Yeah, I got to find balance. I'm a Libra, so.
Yeah. Goodness. Well, like you said, we've kind of already grabbed, all the research we could as far as laying this story out in the episode. And you said that there's things that you get in these interviews, you discuss that people that's not in the research that you've kind of discovered on your own. What's some of this information that you have that isn't when you go into this research isn't necessarily in the forefront of it? What's some of these things that not a lot of people know about Eisenhower's?
You definitely find it online, and this is from a source, because I'm not the kind of person that is just going to believe everything I read, and that's what's great about having the experiences, like being recruited to go off planet and being a part of this family. It's helped me to just have a built-in, discernment that I feel pretty good about. It's never going to be perfect, but I feel pretty good about the way I process information and the way that I put the pieces together. Because, obviously, if you've been anything that we do long enough, we're going to get better in. So Ascension Glossary, Lisa Renee, and her site, energeticsynthesis.com, just so people can look that up and kind of get a feel of her and her energy. There's a part in her writings and newsletters and Ascension Glossary that goes into secret space programs, Second World War, ET government treaties, and everything about the negative alien agenda. I mean, it's like really vast. And when I first became public, she reached out to me. She's like, we need to talk. We need to share information and share codes. I was like, oh, interesting. And I wasn't very familiar with her. And then when I started to realize, like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. We became, good friends. And she ended up putting me in her Ascension Glossary because of my story. And this is like a really vast library. So I highly recommend that if people want to start to go down a gentle rabbit hole, because it covers, the negative alien agenda, but also our potential. And a lot of the things that I've researched and downloaded throughout my life are like sitting right there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God. And so I bring in a lot of quotes, to back up my, theories, and also what is beyond theory to me. I now don't like that word anymore because of the word conspiracy theory, but it literally like I had goosebumps. So I looked up the ET government treaty part, and she goes into, and Keylontic science does too, and that they're all connected. This greater universal truth. It's called the freedom teachings that have been basically wiped out, except a few have been able to bring it back in. Most ancient texts have been distorted. They were supposed to be similar to these original freedom teachings that all got distorted. So anyway, researching all of this, one of the big points that she was amplifying, the ET government treaties started in the 30s, but of course this goes, way further back. Anunnaki, the fall of Atlantis and the cataclysms, and, just how the 13 families came about, and the hybrids and their connection to the reptilians and the draconian agenda. And in the Second World War, how that sort of became a part of the world stage, as in having human hybrids create these alliances and agreements. So Hitler, Aleister Crowley, and Winston Churchill are behind the treaty that sold us out to the Greys. Okay. And she goes into great detail about this, how Winston Churchill had no racial sympathies. He totally was all about selling us out. So when Project Paperclip happened and we thought we had won the Second World War, and they were able to whitewash the names of Nazi scientists that were connected and aligned with these negative beings, they ended up infiltrating everything with their mind control projects and geoengineering, weather modification, and the use of dark weaponry to control humans and to control weather. And Project Mockingbird being the media part of it, and the entertainment industry of, steering narratives, and how that's infiltrated the school systems. So that's part of the military industrial complex. But by the time Eisenhower's administration came around and the 3-letter organizations had already been established, there was not a whole lot that they could do in the face of this meeting. They considered it a surrender. So when people are like, oh, your great grandfather sold us out to the ETs and he signed this treaty, and what was he thinking? It's like, oh man, okay, you want to sit down? Yeah, definitely you want some beer for that one, and let's talk. So
okay. Oh my.
You just mentioned so much good stuff in such a short period of time.
We're already at 20 minutes, Laura. Do you have a few more minutes, or do you need to run?
I am totally just loving talking to you guys, so I'm fine.
Okay. Oh, my wife has never said that to me ever. So I'm just kidding. Okay. My next question. So obviously, I don't think it was just an off chance that your great grandfather was in the position that he was in whenever this treaty happened, whenever this first contact meeting happened. What do you think was significant about your great grandfather that made him the one to be in that position whenever when this treaty happened and these negotiations happened?
Well, there was a lot about the significance of him being connected to when the Nordics first made contact. The Greys made contact, the Reptilians made contact, and then Valiant Thor and beings from Venus made contact. So out of most presidents you'll ever hear about, Eisenhower seemed to have more contact with extraterrestrials than anybody. Why him? Well, in the Law of One, and I would safely say that is probably got some distortions as well, because anything can be tampered with. But I think for the most part, most of the stuff in the raw material, Law of One, is true. So the more benevolent beings felt that he was a man that wasn't bent on power, and that he would be able to help them and help ourselves, as a human race. And so the first meeting had to do with disarming ourselves of nuclear weapons. And in exchange for that, they would assist us in our spiritual development, but they didn't want to give us advanced technology. And so it was very difficult for them to make a decision. And he was relying on allies that actually weren't on his side, that were more supportive of the darker alliance, that were saying, no, this isn't a good idea. And it also wasn't a good idea because not all Nordics are positive, and they do have technology that can cloak a reptilian and make it look like a Nordic. So, it's not the kind of decision you go into real quick, like disarm yourself when you're in the middle of like the Cold War, or you're at the end of a, World War II. I mean, that wasn't going to be a good, right, the kind of thing that you can just rush into. So I think for him, that was very difficult, and he wasn't totally in charge in the way that a president should be, because there's a lot of levels above him. And those things started to get established in law with the 3-letter organizations around 1947. So all these different secret groups and all these hidden elements of the shadow government, he began to notice were more in charge than he was. That's why he wanted to invade Area 51 after the Greada Treaty with the Greys. So anyway, but the Law of One stated that there was a reason that they felt that they could make contact with him, because he was a benevolent being, not bent on power, not part of this, kind of darker cabal, but because, he's just one man with other well-intentioned people that are dealing with, the cesspool of dark cabal members that present themselves as being allies. And it's hard to know who's who and who to trust, especially with the way that they've established compartmentalism in the most unbelievable, masterful way. There's 10 different secret space programs, and we only hear about NASA, right? And most people in NASA won't even know about these other secret space programs. That's how compartmentalized it is. So anyway, the Law of One stated, as far as the benevolence were concerned, that he was a good person to make contact with. And so it ended up that they weren't able to disclose it, but they did warn about the Greys, and they ended up working together. What I found out, that they ended up working together without creating disclosure. They created a different sort of plan. And that plan is the origins of like the white hats and Q and all the stuff that we're seeing today as far as the positive military is concerned. Because when he realized after the Greada Treaty, after being warned, about the Greys, with them not making the deal with the Nordics, when the Greys came along, if, this is the unfortunate thing. If we had made a deal with the Nordics, it would have protected us from the Greys. And he wanted to make a deal with the Nordics, and he wanted to expose this. That's what I found out. So when the Greys came along...
Who's the more dangerous of the two?
What's that?
Who's the more dangerous of the two between the Greys and the Nordics?
Yeah, the Greys seem to be more dangerous. The presence of the Nordics had its own like questions and doubts, but when the Greys came, it was the more dangerous of the two, even though they presented themselves as a dying race, like save us, And in a lot of ways, that alliance or that treaty has not been fully terrible, because the Essassani and the healing of this particular species has been successful. And even the healing of the Orion Wars has already taken place. But when it steps down into the physical, it's almost like time slows down and everything slows down. And we're dealing with things that have already been won, outside of the sphere, but we're just, kind of slowpokes here in this lower density. So that ended up being good, as far as certain elements of it did help to create breeding programs or hybridization programs that help to heal this dying race. So I have not like the happiest feeling about hybridization programs or abductions at all, especially if it's feeling like you're being accosted or you're being taken against your will. I mean, to me, that's like so disturbing and terrible. But from a lot of clients that I've worked with, they have acknowledged over the course of time that they had some sort of soul contract with these beings, and that is totally okay, and they've made peace with it. So I can't say, I can't put a negative or positive charge on it. It is what it is. But it would have been greater to probably align with the Nordics, but even that was dangerous, because the Nordics have been known to be connected to the eugenics, and the reptilians have figured out how to cloak themselves with the appearance of being Nordic. So who knows, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm getting is they probably were benevolent Nordics.
Okay.
So anyway, He aligns with, they considered it a surrender with the Greys. And then there was a greater surrender to the reptilians. And at that point, he was defenseless. And I just read in a book recently that, he did suffer 8 heart attacks. His heart was absolutely broken because he tried to win this war. He tried to stop the Nazis. And the Nazis are not just Nazis. They're connected to the Draco Reptilian Alliance. He did everything he possibly could. And when he realized, not only are the people surrounding him not really on his side, but we really didn't win the war. And when he realized they were a part of those cabal groups, he wanted to invade Area 51 because they didn't brief him anymore. They weren't briefing him anymore. They had this advanced technology that they started to use in a very nefarious way. They started to hoard it, and they used it for negative reasons to, enslave humanity. It absolutely crushed him. And so he tried to invade Area 51, and all he really could do is leave us with his final speech and warn us about the military-industrial complex, which is way more than spending money on weapons and war. It's a exopolitical thing that relates also to secret space programs and the dark weaponry that we're seeing with geoengineering, different mind control projects, different patented technologies that can literally steer a group of individuals in a certain direction. They have patented technologies that can beam on a crowd of people and get them to do something. So when we see these funded movements, I know that it's not just mind control or brainwashing. We're dealing with dark weapons where we're literally being weaponized to go against one another. And if we don't raise our vibration beyond that, these technologies will get the best of us because they rely on a low vibration. In our higher vibration of unity, compassion, and integrity, all these different assaults really can't harm us so much. But if they can create the propaganda to trigger something to make us start to go against each other, we begin to get assimilated into AI and the archonic system and entity attachments that literally create major digression. That's why it's crazy during these times. It's what is happening to people? We're supposed to be expanding into higher earth energies, and it's looking pretty sad out there right now. But a lot of people also are coming together in stronger ways, but it's crazy. It's crazy.
Man, you're like 15 Super Balls. Just you take a handful, just throw them in the room. Me and my little brother used to do this when we were kids. We'd buy 15 Super Balls, and then we'd go in the bathroom and we'd throw them as hard as we could, and we'd just try and hurt each other. And you're like 15 Super Balls, Laura, just ricocheting all over the place.
Oh, I hope you can follow though, and it makes sense.
It's like every time my eye opens a little, I'm like, oh my God. And then you say something, I'm like, oh my God. So it's kind of, I'm trying to grab on one thing and then you're putting something else down. I'm like, oh man. And that's why I'm such a huge fan of your work, because there's just, there's so much stuff to digest and so much stuff to process. And you're not just you're not going down just one road. You're going down all the roads. Overwhelming.
But, yeah, the thing is, it all has to connect. So if we're seeing something on the world stage, we're not just 3D. That's the thing. But they want us to stay in that program. Sure. And so, but the picture is much larger. Our junk DNA is connected to these higher extraterrestrials. And, but they are seeking to, work with us. It's hard to kind of explain. The ones that want to create agreements more than likely are malevolent. They just want to harvest our energy. They want to, but then there's those that are trying to recover. So when you look at certain Greys or even EBEs, they were enslaved by the reptilians and they became digressed humans to the point where their physiology changed. And now they have the appearance of being an EBE or a Grey. And they're trying to save themselves and rescue themselves and join with us and heal their DNA and get away from all that. But then there's others that still haven't had that moment of, I really want to heal. They're still acting as the worker slaves and being, participating in abductions, in a dark way to create, to merge us into the AI and the draconian stuff. So it's very difficult for some people to determine, is this a positive abduction? Is this for a good reason? Or is this, a theft?
Yeah.
And this is what's very difficult for people when one talks about the Greys. So it's a mixed bag. Like the Zetas, there are service to self Zetas and service to other Zetas, and they fall in different places in the timeline. Dan Bursch talked about this, the P-52s and the P-45s. The P-52s are coming from the future, but way further into the future. And they're more benevolent because they've been able to heal and reconnect with their soul matrix. Whereas the ones that are younger are way more hostile because they're dealing with the greater effects of the choices that they made or what they were forced into that we're facing right now as a humanity in terms of AI, transhumanism, vaccinations, and how we respond to this so-called virus crisis. So right now we're at the crossroads of, are we going to become Greys and EBEs walking down this timeline to the point where we're going to have to abduct humans and time travel? Or are we going to become, ascended humans and step into, our self-mastery and begin to uncover the treasures of our junk DNA, which is absolutely not junk at all.
Right. That's a lot to process, Laura. That's a lot.
But we make choices every day. And the whole thing is we don't want to be ruled by fear. If we notice, I'm not a political person and I don't, whatever, right, left, whatever. It's such a bigger dialogue that we're dealing with. Yeah. One is doom, gloom, fear, and dark winter and this, and nobody's taking the virus seriously enough and how irresponsible. It's like, why would we want to empower that? I don't care if you're right or left. I don't care what your color skin. I mean, that alone is a big red flag. That we're supposed to be advancing as humans. So and the other side being, don't fear the virus. You won't have to have mandatory vaccinations. That should be enough right there to drop the personality and identity battles of, who seems like a nicer guy. We got to get out of the world of personalities and look at what's at stake. So I'm more politically, I sound like I'm more politically driven than ever, but I'm not. It has nothing to do with politics.
It's a bigger picture.
This is the work that I've been doing since day one. Yeah. This is about the showdown of forces right now. Are we going to end up in a new world order, or are we going to have a chance to not have a gatekeeper president that allows us to develop and thrive in our own, rights to, have certain freedoms that should not be taken away, and the freedom to protect ourselves. So it's like hate Trump all you want, people. It's not about needing to like him. You're not inviting him over to dinner. You're not dating him. Look at the difference, though, between where these different energies and intents are going. That is the most important thing to look at right now. But who wins doesn't matter. Whoever ends up winning, the light forces are not going to lose. And it's not all dependent on the election. We're way bigger than that. And there's enough light forces on the planet to create that tipping point. So even worst case scenario, we get the wrong person in office. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I really do feel that in this larger picture perspective that the light has the organic true light, not the false light, has the upper hand. And the organic true light doesn't deny darkness. It understands the need to do shadow work. It's all about balance and integrating polarity so we can begin to switch on these dormant parts of ourselves. And it's not about worshiping our president or relying on the governments, but at least we got to make sure that we're protecting future generations and not, buying into this, because masking our children and shooting us up with vaccines, not good. Not good. I don't know if you guys agree, but that's just...
Laura, the way Rob and I both are...
I'm sorry if I went into a place you didn't want to go. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. We're kind of like... I don't know. If your dog, for instance, had a wart on the back of its head, that wart isn't necessarily going to kill your dog, or it's just kind of there. That's how Rob and I, we're just kind of here. As long as it doesn't affect the inside four walls of our house, then we're kind of just passive about it. I'm not proud to say that, but we don't have any, I don't know, like you said, we don't have any political affiliation at all. But once it gets to the point where it's affecting the inside four walls of my house, that's when I'm concerned. But we're much far beyond that with this COVID-19 stuff. So it's kind of, I have my opinions, but I said this in the last episode. My dad taught me when I was young, don't tell somebody how much money you make, and don't talk to people about what your political affiliation is. So that's kind of
right. And this is the thing, because it's not political for me. It's just being somebody. Oh, sorry, I don't want to cut you off. Keep going.
No, you're fine. But like you said, it's like you can give your opinion. You may not be political, but everyone politicizes everything right now. So for me right now, I can say I don't like ice cream, and they'll say, well, the inventor of ice cream was this color, so now you're a goddamn racist. So it's not even worth wasting.
It's really, really hard. Yeah. And that's, I think, the big lesson that we're dealing with. And I got to be really careful. But
Not on this show.
Because this has been
Let it fly,
a
girl.
lifelong. Because this has been a lifelong mission, though, it wouldn't be right for me after learning as much that I've learned about the deep state, about these darker agendas, about the dark technologies, about our galactic history. It wouldn't. I don't feel like it would be. I don't feel like I can shut up about what I'm seeing. But it'll get twisted and misunderstood. People will be like, "Oh,
Sure.
yeah, you think Trump's a savior? You're a Republican." I'm like, no. There's nothing to do with it. It's just making choices right now in this critical time that allows us the breathing room to advance ourselves and develop ourselves as humans. And that's why I've never voted, because I know both sides are owned, but this is a little bit different. It's a little bit different kind of thing. So I don't want people to, all of a sudden kind of drop away and like, oh, well, she's talking about that. I guess I'm just trying to say, regardless of the election, we are dealing with the showdown of forces, and
Yes.
New World Order is breathing down our neck, and it's no joke. And I get intel drops from sources that I don't even expect, and it's very alarming. But the positive or the organic ascension timeline, I mean, that has nothing to do with the election. That has to do with our birthright. That has to do with our ability to step in alignment with the organic ascension signals instead of the AI signals. So
what do you mean by organic ascension? Like whenever we physically leave this earth, is that what you mean?
It's an upgrade where we begin to move from carbon-based to crystalline, where our physiology actually like shifts. So on the highest level, it's like I mean, this is going to take a long time. So it's not like, oh, you're going to wake up with your avatar consciousness in a Merkaba body, but UFOs, benevolent beings that operate UFOs, it's a part of their consciousness. And so nobody else can pilot that UFO because it's a part of their body.
Okay.
And they're able to come and go from different dimensions as they please. If they free themselves from the matrix, and if they've removed the seals and fences that prevent us from experiencing these level of upgrades. So it's something that, yes, if we leave the physical plane, we still experience ascension. But if we can maintain the physical vessel in this time of being upgraded, we will start to get our spiritual gifts and abilities back. The ability to materialize things just through our willpower, but it doesn't come through black magic or using willpower in a dark way. That doesn't work, and that's what's happened with these beings in the dark cabal. They became so dark and ego-based that they damage their own DNA, and they rely on us as a food source. And so they use vampiric technologies and create vampiric propaganda in order to steal and siphon. And they got, harvesting tanks that goes right into the black cube of Saturn. And that's the Saturn moon matrix. That's a whole other thing that keeps our junk DNA alive and simulates an artificial reality. But the ascension energies, which I've studied a lot, because I'm a total geek when it comes to this stuff.
I don't think you're a geek. I think you're a wild woman. Wild.
Anyway, the sun, you're funny. The sun started to move through the 13th sign of Theicus in 2010. And this was a significant time where the timeline shifted into what's called crystal star hosting. And this timeline shift basically is a real deal thing. And the sun moving through Theicus, the 13th sign, it's the one sign that's ruled by the ether. And the ether is connected to the mitochondrial DNA, which has been damaged because the last 26,000 year cycle, the mother energy has not been anchored in the planet, and we've been dealing with the dark reversals and the manipulation of the ether energy, and it's symbolized in the upside down pentagram, where the fifth element, which represents spirit, is shown going into the ground as opposed to be upright. And the Venus transits have drawn a perfect pentagram. The orbit of Venus has drawn a perfect pentagram, and it shows that a correction has been underway on a cosmic level for thousands of years to create the alchemy to symbolically, turn this star upright again. So when we look at the last 26,000 years of history, the dark cabal have practiced satanic ritual abuse based in the Baphomet and the dark mother reversals to create digression and dissension instead of ascension. So there's been an intervention on a cosmic scale through these Venus transits that have created the sacred geometry in the cosmos that have affected us because we're connected to all the planets. I'm a medical astrologer, so our organs and glands are connected with the planets. I mean, it's like everything outside of us in nature is an outer reflection of what's going on inside. We all carry different pieces of it. Unity consciousness means we share codes and frequencies so we can rebuild our DNA architecture and become whole again. But anyway, ever since 2010, when the sun started to move through Theicus, really began to make it clear, wow, the ether energy is back. The Venus transits, that's why this was a prophesized time, 2012, because at around 2010, this energy would start to build and peak in 2012. It's like, so they wanted to create a lot of propaganda. Oh, end of the world, Armageddon, New World Order movies. We don't see a lot of, oh, what does Ascension look like on planet Earth? Where's that movie? Nobody's going to write that script.
Nope.
But anyway, it's been prophesized. And so when that ether energy is able to come in DNA and begin to upgrade, because the ether element was put in something called reversal 55, and it's a platonic solid dodecahedron, which they manipulated so that the currents of energy connected to the stargates on the planet would not be circulating at all. And so they created these cataclysms on purpose, like the Atlantean cataclysm, to throw off the planetary body from its axis. And way, way before that, the Milky Way system fell away from the galactic core of Andromeda, which starts with the Lyran Wars and when we initially got attacked by the reptilians. And so that all sounds like, oh my God, that's way over my head. So how can we simplify this? Look at it like when we're not in balance in our own personal lives, if we take it down to the micro level, when we're not in balance, we are very vulnerable to parasites and attack because that's just physics, right? Okay. So that happened on a cosmic scale where in a free will universe, the differentiation of masculine and feminine, the fallen angels compared to the ones that were still like holding high council, how it split into the Antichrist agenda and the Christ consciousness agenda, it like literally we polarize to the point of becoming at war with ourselves. And that is a breeding ground to dark entities, parasites and archons and reptilians. So how do you heal it? You come into balance, you come into unity. They lose the food source. If we starve the thing that's trying to feed upon us and we understand what's being targeted, we would win this war in no time, in a week.
Okay.
We win the war within. It's a war on consciousness, but they needed to prep us and groom us through all the false flags of these world wars throughout history to traumatize us to the point where we don't know who's who or who to trust. And so they keep creating false flags and psychological operation and trigger events to keep us conquered and divided, because that is what parasites feed on. They need that negative energy, which is called loosh.
Loosh.
I know you guys are probably exhausted and probably want me to probably get off the phone, but do you kind of get what I'm saying?
I'm following like 10 different directions here, Laura. I'm trying to, like I said, how your brain is just, your objective is to piece it all together, and you've been doing this your entire life. We are not going to be able to piece it all together in 45 minutes. I mean,
No, I know.
It's really enlightening to hear this stuff, but it's a lot. And I'm just going to, Laura, I'm all about hitting the hot button. Okay. And I'm just going to bust this thing open right now. Do you have a few more minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of, and this is not the direction that we are going to go, but recently we covered, these Wayfair cabinets and the Pizzagate scandal. And you've been very opinionated about the kind of the deep state pedophilia ring. I've seen a lot of your Facebook posts about it, and I've seen a lot of different interviews where you've talked about it. In your mind, what's the truth and the misconception behind, I guess, this pedophilia ring that's been brought to the mainstream in the past few years?
Well, it's now the clues are out there. I mean, I don't even follow. I mean, there's been enough of us exposing this kind of stuff, being aware of this kind of stuff for a long time. So when they say, oh, that's a right-wing conspiracy, no, it's actually not. This has nothing to do with right or left. Unfortunately, like you said, everything's being politicized. Yeah. So it's easy to brush it off or say Q's dangerous. I don't really care. I mean, I'm sure it's been infiltrated and I'm sure there's some negative, aspects to it. But to me, it's just a place that people check drops and it gives them clues and they go research. That's all I've seen really. But I see the fanatical part of it. But I see that at, sports games and rock concerts. It's like, Jesus, that person's like becoming like they're so obsessed with that musician. But that's that individual's trip. I mean, it doesn't reflect on, anybody else but that individual that chooses to go to that extreme. But it doesn't seem or appear to be violent. But that's beside the point. So people have to understand, stop blaming Q or saying it's about Q and it's a right-wing conspiracy. Because I've been in this field doing readings. I'm not just a researcher. I'm not just an experiencer. but I've been doing sessions and readings every single freaking day for the last 10 years. And a huge part of my clientele has been people that are victims of satanic ritual abuse, multi-generational trauma-based mind control, which are all tied in. I've done interviews. I mean, you guys talked to Tony Rodriguez, so clearly you're able to, handle that level of, he was trafficked and he served in the secret space program.
Some heavy shit.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, if you can handle a Tony Rodriguez, then, I mean, anybody can handle it. Like, so many different layers because he, covers the whole gamut. So the Pizzagate part and the Wayfarers, these are just clues hiding in plain sight that they're literally trying to shut down. All the clues are there. The artwork, this is no different than the kind of artwork Epstein had. And nobody can deny that there wasn't an Epstein Island. And people have to know it's not limited to just that one island and just Epstein. He's connected to a worldwide, global elite child trafficking ring based in pedophilia, harvesting adrenochrome, ritual abuse. And that is the deep state cabal. And many of their members hold these most prominent positions in our society: mayors, governors, doctors, cops. And it's horrific. So, I mean, I've had such a hard time being, because I do astrology readings. I'm not like licensed to be able to handle multiple personalities. And, but they know, we've seen our interviews. You're the only person that's going to take us seriously. We needed to come to you. So I'm just going to listen, and hold space. And some of them, have done interviews with me. And so I can't deny it. And I know that it does hide in plain sight. A lot of the victims talk about businesses that look and appear to be fine on the outside, just like a pizza parlor, right?
Right.
Might have been a hairdresser. I remember having a client that it was at a particular hairdresser store. Even Andrew Bashago talks about jumping into teleportation technology systems at McLeod Market in Weed, California, like in the back of the store that looks like just your country, like convenience store. I mean, so all of this is hiding in plain sight. Not just utilizing these dark technologies, for things like Project Pegasus, but child trafficking, human trafficking, and then, passing around kids in billionaire parties. So when something like Pizzagate comes about and people are dismissing it, it's basically they're dismissing the very concept or idea that this even exists. So, of course, it deserves further research. So worst case scenario, say that particular pizza place wasn't a part of all of it. Well, maybe the place across the street. The whole point is don't obsess over people, not you guys, of course. Let's not obsess over, this particular pizza joint and associate it with just like one thing that is being called out. Let that be an example of the fact that this exists all over the place, including the Wayfarers, including, God, I don't know how to articulate this. That does have to be taken seriously, that particular pizza place. But if people limit it to that and they fail to see the larger picture and other, clues coming in, they'll just think that that's just an isolated, right-wing conspiracy thing because of the timing in which it was exposed. Because they'll always say, oh, yeah, look at, it's right around election time, and they're doing this on purpose to disrupt the election. You got to drop all that. This stuff has been going on forever. Kathy O'Brien has been exposing, her MK Ultra, like sex slavery, situation for 30 years. This has nothing to do with right or left. Republicans have been involved. Democrats have been involved. The labels don't matter anymore. It comes down to we need to take down the cabal, and that is it. Yeah. And these things are real. They use all this kind of stuff. It's rampant in Hollywood too. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind because I talk to these people every day, and they don't just come to me to lie. They're not asking for anything. They're paying me for a session. And sometimes I'm like, I don't even want their money. I'm like, I'm not about the money part, but I have to make a living. Well, but it's been horrifying. I had to put it on mute. I burst into tears. I'm like, this is like, nobody takes this stuff seriously.
Corey Feldman's been going on about this for decades.
They make fun of it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said Corey Feldman's been talking about this for decades.
Mm-hmm.
About, even him and Corey Haim being trafficked as when they were younger in Hollywood. I mean, it's the main thing is just to bring light on it, whether or not it is the pizza place, or it's definitely happening. And I think the more eyes we get on it, the better it's going to get.
That's what I mean. Exactly, and that's what I mean. It's not about turning your attention away from that being something that needs to be heavily investigated, but just don't limit yourself to that, because then the Wayfarers thing is being made fun of. Look at all the model agencies that cover child trafficking. I mean, the whole Rachel Chandler thing. When I found a website that it was not supposed to be a public website, it took me a bit to find it, and multiple Instagram posts of this website that wasn't being really put out there. I mean, and a lot of people exposed this. They looked drugged. They didn't even have a name attached to it, and they certainly weren't models. And there's, and so I feel like that links into something like Wayfarers. And how people just brush it off and make fun of it just makes me crazy. It's just, it's unbelievable because it keeps victims from coming forward. It's like, oh, people are laughing at this. It's like they're traumatized already. And like humans don't realize that we're the powers that be, the collective consciousness is. It's not so much about the election or the leaders. Well, it is because the crimes against humanity need to be exposed, but it's up to us to be responsible to this information so that we're not in denial and we're not allowing it to continue.
Well, like you said before, it's like whenever you said it's all connected together, and it's like we're programmed to turn away from it, like dismiss it to where it's not. We see so much of it now. There's like, it's just another theory, another, some waterhead made up this conspiracy theory about these kids being abused, and we're, like you said, we're programmed to turn our heads away from it now, which is exactly what they want. So
it's because it's something it's something that you don't want to think about. I mean, it's the bad part of the black part of reality. That you just don't want to admit that it's actually happening and it's actually going on right now.
I know, and it's like it's understandable. It's very uncomfortable, and you just don't want. It's too horrifying, but you don't have to mistreat the people that are willing to address it. You can be supportive from far away. You can say, okay, that's up to you, just like a cop. And I don't even want to go into that because then it's like, oh, you support cops and we got to defund the police station. But I'm just saying we all have our roles. But why do we have to get in each other's way? We're dealing with real victims here. I just interviewed somebody with 200 altars who was passed around to the royal family and the Trudeaus, raped at the age of 4 by one of the Trudeau family members. And his wife became kind of like his therapist, met him at this thing, and she's been trying to help him. And she was a client, and she was just telling me about her husband. And I said, oh my gosh, is he ready to talk about this? And so it took a while. I wasn't going to push it at all, but they came to me and they said, he's ready to talk. And he said a huge amount of the altars that were programmed were being groomed to play a particular role in these end times, to play a prominent position in society, similar to what we're seeing with, some of these mayors and governors that have the worst mandates that are not protecting their citizens from the rioting and looting. So we see the facade of how it looks on a societal level or, is being politicized, but it's way more than anybody can imagine. We're dealing with deep state cabal. And some people are concerned maybe Trump's one of them. So we always have to be careful. Nobody should put their full trust in anything or anyone. And he's certainly not perfect, but it just requires people's investigation. Don't just gobble up what you get in the news because they're masterful. That's what Project Mockingbird is, masterful in steering the narrative and subtly influencing people subliminally, which is social engineering, and the indoctrination that we've gotten in the school systems to support and consent to the worst possible outcome for us as a human race. New World Order is, they're going to disguise it. Oh, no, we're looking out for you. We're protecting you from a virus. And I'm not saying people aren't getting sick, but the response and the tactics that they're using to put us in a major trap is something we need to be able to be willing to face because the stakes are too great. Because it's not just like some mistake like, oh, yeah, it's not a superficial mistake. This is costing future generations. This is going to compromise our DNA. This is literally basically consenting to the destruction of everything that's sacred and the rights and freedoms that we all deserve. So these are huge, huge times for us. And all I ask for people is, humble your heart, have discernment, question everything, question everything I'm saying too, but, take the time. We're all tasked with this. We all have this purpose right now. And it's irresponsible to walk the other way and just act like somebody else, is looking out for you and has your best interest at heart. The only reason I might sound like I side more towards Trump is because he's not going to mandatory vaccinate us, and he's allowing us to figure it out for ourselves. He gives more faith in us as humans to navigate these times than the other side, which is saying it's crazy to not be masked. It's crazy to, this subtle, programming of we're headed for a doom and gloom. And I'm sorry, I'm going back into that, but it's like the election's coming up. It's kind of nuts. I don't know.
No, it's fine. Well, Laura, in closing here, what projects are you working on? Where can people go to hear your voice more than just the Brohio podcast here? What are you working on?
Okay, well, I have a 3-hour workshop November 8th, and it's at 12 p.m. Pacific time. If you go to my website, cosmicgaia.org, you'll see it on the front page. And it's not going to go into anything what one might deem political. It really goes into our human potential, what we need to have the freedom to unfold into and unlock, the treasures of our junk DNA, the larger picture of our galactic history, and the weapons that are being used against us. And I don't go into, all the rest of it. I'm just saying you got to look through the lens of a larger picture to know what we're up against right now, as far as that part's concerned. So you can find that on my website. If anybody, is in a financial bind, it is $33. You can do a coupon code for those that have tuned in, and it's PTA lowercase, standing for Portal to Ascension, and the number 25, and you can get 25% off.
Bingo.
Of the $33, and then you'll be able to replay it. Everything else you're going to find on my website. I've got a subscription for Cosmic Gaia. I do about 4 or more Zoom events a month where we can interact, we can talk, and I can do mini readings. And then I have Dark to Light, which is Patreon, and it's Dark to Light. There's a show. We interview somebody every other week, and then we do a Q&A every other week. And that's David Rodriguez, the former heavyweight boxing champion, and I, who are collaborating on that.
Nice.
And you can find all that information on my website, cosmicgaia.org.
Spell your website for us.
CosmicGaia.org, O-R-G.
All right, cosmicgaia.org. I'm going to link that in our show description. Okay.
Yes, and also be sure to subscribe anyway to the free newsletter, just so that if accounts get shut down or anything happens, there's a way to stay in touch.
Okay, awesome. And if we've had a lot of people that reached out to Tony Rodriguez once they heard his 20 and back story. What people that kind of what kind of people should reach out to you that what are they dealing with? What the people that are coming to you? What kind of stuff are they mentally afflicted with right now?
Oh, what's the most common thing I'm finding?
Well, I guess for our listeners, if they're struggling with something, what people should I send your direction?
Yeah, so looking at a chart, and I go beyond just what your typical astrologer might do, because I learn the medical and the more galactic, and I understand the dark technologies, the artificial component of the moon, and Saturn, and all that. So, basically, if you're really struggling with feeling what is your purpose, or you've got PTSD, any physical issues, or you're feeling very isolated and you're not able to process these times. There's nothing that astrology doesn't cover. It even covers the non-belief in astrology. You can see that aspect in the chart. So, there's nothing it doesn't cover. And I do a lot less readings now. But group calls, I'm networking people, helping people start businesses from home with products that'll clear heavy metals out of your body, help you to detox, help you to protect yourself from EMFs and 5G. And so it's like, I'm trying to get everything: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and helping you find your purpose and your passion, and also help you to stand in alignment with the energies that are going to help you to upgrade and feel, into your joy and into what these times are really about, which is human advancement. And what is the Great Awakening? It's being your true, authentic self. So through the tool of astrology, I'm able to help with that, and then linking, community together so that we don't feel, so alone in these times, and that you can, raise your hand and talk about what you're going through, and have people, give you warmth and love and support and compassion, and just to create a team, so we can navigate through these difficult times. And it doesn't matter what your belief systems are. It doesn't matter, what affiliation or party or thing that you identify with. The whole point is that's secondary. The priority right now is love, community, unity, and having each other's back, and having respectful conversations, so that
beautiful.
You can be a part of this greater conversation and get somewhere together, right?
I'm 100% on board with that. One last question, Laura, okay? This is the last one, and then I'll let you lay in your bed and not sleep for the next 12 hours. Why did they find water on the moon? Why did NASA come out today and say we found water on the moon? What are they loading up to? There's something.
I always feel like they're trying to just keep us engaged in this sort of lower level space program that is so primitive compared to what is really going on. I mean, talking to Tony, right?
Yeah.
Going to the lunar bases and training at a lunar base. I mean, there's so much more going on than what we'll ever hear about. So I always feel like they're just giving us, small pieces to keep us engaged. And, oh yeah, okay, they're still exploring, the moon. They're still discovering the stuff. Oh yeah, let's look at the latest pictures. Mars. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see that story. If they were really giving disclosure, they would be talking about the lunar bases and how they're training super soldiers there. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's like finding water on the moon. That's not surprising. I mean, those who went to Mars and went to Mars colonies that have come back to tell the tale, you don't see that on the mainstream news. Oh, what about the 20 and back programs? What about, they're just like on the sidelines. Maybe you'll catch an interview in a YouTube video. They're being ignored. There's no curiosity. There's no like, oh, let's put you on mainstream news and interview you.
Right.
So we're always getting a very, very small picture compared to, what whistleblowers and experiencers are disclosing. So to me, it's just another, just like, oh, great. Water on the moon.
Water on the moon. Well, Laura,
you got water in the brain, people. Like,
you are the absolute best. You are more than welcome to come on this show anytime you want. Anytime you got something you want to talk about. The bros,
really?
The bros of Ohio. We're the guys to reach out to. And we're happy to have you on anytime. So,
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me and just allowing me to have my download rambles.
No, it was worth every second. We're always on the lookout for different topics that maybe aren't maybe haven't been covered before. And I think we got about 15 dozen of those by talking to you tonight. It's different rabbit holes we can venture down.
Awesome. Well, it's so great to meet you guys. And I will definitely be in touch, and much love to you both.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can find Laura at Cosmic Gaia, GAIA.org. She's got the upcoming seminar on November 8th, 2020. Go, you can use the promo code. What was the promo code one more time?
PTA for Portal to Ascension and the number 25. And I think you want to do it lowercase.
Killer. All right,
PTA.
Laura. All right, Laura. Well, have a fabulous night, and thanks for joining us.
Okay, thank you. You as well.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
All right, that was Laura Eisenhower. And when I said she had a mouthful, she had a brain full, she had a soul full.
So much information.
She had a heart full, man.
I really do think there's so much stuff there that we could look into. And
she has fucking a brain that's 50 million times bigger than her head. God. I feel so stupid talking to someone like that.
Right.
Like there's just, her thought process is just on such a different level.
Yeah.
And today, I had a napkin. I balled it up.
Right.
Launched it from about 15 feet away. Right into the trash can. Swish. And I thought about that for 20 minutes. I said, I'm the baddest motherfucker in this house. There's nobody in here that can stand up to that 3-pointer I just tossed in from downtown.
Yeah, it's like we got so much empty thoughts in our head.
Dude.
Like that has no substance whatsoever, and that's like 90% of what's in my head, and then she has this.
I was laying there for like 2 more minutes, and I said, I wish I could shoot spider webs out of my fucking wrist. I'd swing on out of here. Fuck all this.
And yet somehow we get to talk to people who know a lot more about everything than we do.
I'm so glad she finally answered back. Although we didn't talk about her grandpa at all.
No, I mean it's okay.
Yeah, we got to tell his story real quick.
Sure.
All right, let's. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Dark Vault. We're gonna finish the Dark Vault really quick. Thanks.